This is going to be a video on my Journey vinyl collection. Journey is a band, much like Foreigner, that my dad actually introduced me to when I was growing up. He had the albums Infinity and Evolution and constantly had those on the turntable. So as I was growing up, I was always hearing Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', Feeling That Way, City of the Angels, all those classic Journey songs were being played in my living room on my dad's hi-fi stereo system, always at full volume. So many Saturdays and Sundays, weekends were filled just with the sound of Journey. As I got older and I was into late elementary school was when the Escape album took off. Don't Stop Believing was on the radio. Who's Crying Now? Frontiers was when MTV was big on television, when we had cable TV and we started to actually see some Journey videos. So I'm going to go through my Journey vinyl collection, but Journey has always been one of those bands that I've got such a nostalgic feeling for because they're almost a soundtrack to my youth. Now, I didn't realize before Steve Perry joined the band that there actually was a Journey. So the first couple of Journey albums are ones that I had to discover kind of on my own. It was not something that I guess I understood. There was a pre-Steve Perry Journey, but this is the first Journey album. And at this time, they were a quintet. Gregg Rolie did the vocals, but this is the inner sleeve to show you the lineup. But we had Gregg Rolie on keyboards and lead vocals. Obviously, Gregg Rolie was part of Santana's band before he joined Journey. Neal Schon on lead guitar and vocals. Aynsley Dunsbar was on drums. George Tickner was on rhythm guitar, and Ross Valory was on bass guitar, piano, and vocals. The inner sleeve here has some lyrics, and this is the actual label itself. I was actually surprised at how much I did enjoy this album. I thought it was going to be mostly instrumentals. I don't know what gave me that perception, maybe just the idea that, well, there couldn't have been a vocalist for Journey other than Steve Perry. And certainly I never imagined that the band existed before him, but this is an enjoyable record. It's got some progressive rock elements to it, a little bit of some jazz fusion, I guess you might say, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected I would. Same for Journey's second album, which is Look Into the Future. They're down to a quartet here, still with Gregg Rolie on vocals. And it's weird, this album actually opens from the top instead of on the side. This is the inner sleeve. And then there's 4 pictures of the band. I guess these might be outtakes or whatnot from the image that yielded the front cover session. And this has a cover, for me being a Beatles fan, there's a cover of It's All Too Much, which was on the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. But again, it's a little more of the same. It's not quite up to par with some of Journey's classic stuff, but I did find it enjoyable. It is good, classic rock and roll. I don't know how else to characterize it, but it's enjoyable. If you do like Journey's other 70s work, you will find these first 2 albums enjoyable. I don't have the third Journey album on vinyl, which is next. And so the next Journey album that I do have, and this is still in the shrink, it's got the hype sticker. This was retailing at Corvettes for $4.99. And if you don't know, at least for me, I'm a child of the 70s, and so Corvettes was a record store that was one of the bigger record retail chains in the 70s. That's where a lot of any albums that I did happen to buy, even though I was relatively younger, were purchased at Corvettes. So that's what that store is. They're back to a 5-piece with the addition of Steve Perry. This is the inner sleeve. It's got just some song credits here, and then the lyrics on the reverse side. Label still looks the same. So this was, for me, kind of my first exposure to Journey. Wheel in the Sky is on here. Obviously, the biggest hit probably that most people would recognize would be Feeling That Way. Winds of March is great. Lights is another fantastic track off this album. Anytime is great. But just really a staple of what we now call classic rock radio. But to me at the time, not only was I hearing it on the radio, but like I said, my dad played this album to death. So it was one of those things that it's just, when I listen to it, there's such a wave of nostalgia that washes over me. Same with this album, Evolution, another classic Journey album. This has got Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', which is a great segue into City of the Angels. Just the same way, has a great Gregg Rolie vocal on it. Do You Recall is another fantastic song. I really like that one. When You're Alone, It Ain't Easy, even though it's not on Journey's greatest hits. To me, that's a greatest hit of Journey. I don't know if it's just because I'm so familiar with it, but I really consider that a classic Journey song. Then the album Departure, which I think this might have been their last album of the 70s. This is the inner sleeve, and them looking very frigid and cold in the outdoors. I don't know, it looks like there's some skyline in the background. I don't know that much about but for the first time, they have a custom label. And my favorite tracks on here, well, actually, it's funny. On the inner sleeve, it says, "Join us for our departure into the 80s." And I don't see a date on here, but I think this is either 79 or 80 when this album came out. Any Way You Want It was the huge hit off of here. But Walks Like a Lady is a great track. I'm Crying, Departure, Stay a While. Not very well known by most people who like Journey, but I still think it's a solid album. And I believe this was the last album to feature Gregg Rolie before he left. And then this is a 2-disc or a 2-album compilation, and it contains songs from their first 3 albums. So you had the Journey self-titled album, Look Into the Future, and then Next. And it's got an interesting gatefold here. Still on the classic Columbia label. And I don't know if there was a custom inner sleeve. Both the sleeves that I have in here are just kind of plain white. But I don't think there was, an inner sleeve of any note. So if you're interested in kind of dipping your toe into the pre-Steve Perry era, this would be the place to start if you can find it. I believe it's available on CD, also on cassette. And then the first Journey live album, this was Captured. And it's like most live albums of the 70s, it is a double live album. And it's got some various shots of the band on tour here. And does have this is something that you have to pull out. It's like a poster. So I'm not sure if you'd want to hang it on your wall necessarily, but that was something that came with it. And then the inner sleeves also and then there's some album credits here. And then the other inner sleeve. And another custom label for Journey. And so the next album was their smash hit, maybe their commercial peak, Escape, which has Don't Stop Believin', Stone in Love, one of my favorite Journey tracks of all time, Who's Crying Now, Mother or Father is a great track, and then the album closer, Open Arms, which was a smash hit. This is the inner sleeve with some lyrics. Another custom label. And then I've got an album here that doesn't want to go in the inner sleeve. I hate when that happens, especially when I'm trying to make a video. There it goes. So Escape was a huge hit. There was actually an Atari game that they made for this, but this is the single for Who's Crying Now. And the flip side on this was Mother, Father. And then the next Journey album, now in the MTV age, was Frontiers. And then a shot of the band skydiving. This was the inner sleeve. And the custom label is also a shot of the band skydiving. And the big video there, remember on MTV, was Separate Ways. Send Her My Love was another hit off of here. Faithfully. And the second side is lesser known. Didn't really have any hits off of here. But I do have the Separate Ways, in parentheses, Worlds Apart. And the B-side on here is, that's the front of it, and then the B-side is the song Frontiers. Just the way that just a side note, the way that I've seen most people, if you've got a single and a picture sleeve, I've got these little protective sleeves here. And then typically the sleeve is not, the record's not actually in the sleeve. It's just kind of behind it in its own label. So anyway, just, I've seen different people do it differently. And then when I was in high school, the big album that was out by Journey was Raised on Radio, with the big hit Girl Can't Help It and Suzanne. Girl Can't Help It. I loved that song in high school. I actually saw Journey in concert at Joe Louis Arena on this tour. And just a fantastic show. I believe Glass Tiger opened for them on the Raised on Radio tour. They had a hit, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone or something like that, but that was my one and only Journey concert experience. And this is the picture sleeve for The Girl Can't Help It. And then the B-side is It Could Have Been You. And then the other single picture sleeve I have from this album is Suzanne. And the B-side on here is Ask the Lonely. So interesting because it wasn't on that album, but still love that track. And then this was another one. Chronologically, I know it's out of place, but this was Only the Young from the Vision Quest soundtrack, and it's actually got a Sammy Hagar track on the B-side, I'll Fall in Love Again. And that is my Journey vinyl. I've been looking for the greatest hits on vinyl and anything else that I happen to stumble across when I'm out at my local record stores. But that's what I have. Thanks for watching, and interested in your comments. If you have any of these albums or anything that I should be on the lookout for, I'd appreciate it. Everybody take care.